November is shaping up to be one of the biggest months of TV this year, from long-awaited finales and high-stakes thrillers to bold new dramas and dark comedies. There's something for every kind of binge watcher. I'm KG, this is Watch This Instead, and today we're breaking down the most anticipated series hitting streaming this November. I've got 15 incredible picks for you, so grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's jump right in. The legend of Robin Hood has been reimagined more times than we can count, but MGM Plus's new take aims to strip away the folklore and uncover the man behind the myth. Set in the turbulent years after the Norman conquest of England, this series reframes Robin not as a light-hearted outlaw but as a survivor of an occupied country. Jack Patton plays Rob, a Saxon forester's son whose life is torn apart by the corruption of local lords. Out of that devastation rises the rebellion and the birth of an idea that justice doesn't have to come from the crown. Lauren McQueen takes on Marianne, no longer just a love interest but a noble woman caught between her Norman roots and her growing empathy for the Saxon cause. Their partnership, part alliance, part romance, is what gives the story its emotional pull. And of course, every rebellion needs an enemy. Sean Bean steps in as the Sheriff of Nottingham, bringing the gravitas and quiet menace that made him iconic in series like Game of Thrones. This sheriff isn't a cartoon villain, he's a man of order in a world sliding toward chaos. Shot in Serbia, the show uses misty forests, damp villages, and torchlit halls to make medieval England feel tangible and lived in, a world of mud, blood, and shifting loyalties rather than clean heroics. Showrunners have described the tone as Peaky Blinders meets historical rebellion, grounded, morally complex, and political in ways that mirror our modern anxieties about power and inequality. It's less about robbing from the rich and more about what happens when the people fight back against a broken system. If you're into dark reimaginings, historical epics with edge, or character-driven dramas that treats legend as social history, Robin Hood should be high on your November watch list. Back under the scorching Florida sun, Palm Royale returns for its second season, and if you thought Maxine Delacourt had reached peak scandal last year, think again. Set in the glitzy, gossip-fueled world of 1969 Palm Beach high society, this Apple TV Plus hit continues the story of Maxine, played to perfection by Kristen Wiig, as she claws her way up the social ladder of the elite. In season 2, she's no longer the desperate outsider crashing parties, she's in the room now. But staying there might be even harder. Rivalries grow sharper, alliances shift, and the champagne smiles hide sharper knives than ever. The star-studded cast returns in full force. Laura Dern, who also executive produces, brings quiet intensity and just the right amount of chaos. Alison Janney delivers the kind of icy one-liners only she can, and Ricky Martin, Carol Burnett, and Kaya Gerber all reprise their roles as the glittering, scheming fixtures of Palm Beach's upper crust. The creative team has teased that season 2 raises the stakes and lowers the manners, promising even bigger drama, more biting satire, and a few emotional gut punches amid all the glamour. Tonally, it's still that irresistible blend of period opulence and social warfare. Think The White Lotus with more hairspray and less morality. But what keeps it interesting is how it balances comedy with commentary. Underneath the sequins and sun, Palm Royale remains a story about class, reinvention, and the cost of pretending to be someone you're not. If you loved the first season's mix of camp and sophistication, Palm Royale's return looks like another binge of pure guilty pleasure gold, equal parts wicked, witty, and wildly entertaining. Los Angeles might sparkle on the surface, but I Love LA is here to remind you what it really costs to stay shining. Created by and starring Rachel Sennott, this new HBO comedy follows Maya, a quick-witted assistant at a talent management company fighting for a long overdue promotion to junior manager. She's ambitious, a little chaotic, and holding her life together with caffeine and self-delusion, all while her friend group, just as lost and determined, keeps colliding in spectacularly funny ways. Her circle of friends include Charlie, Dylan, Tallulah, and Alani, a tight but toxic mix of creatives, strivers, and emotional dependents who love each other almost as much as they sabotage each other. Together, Together, they're figuring out what it means to grow up in a city that never stops performing. Behind the camera, Senot teams up with Lorene Scafaria from Hustlers and Bill Benz from Nowhere In, blending sharp writing with a sleek, sun-drenched visual style. It's funny and fast, but underneath the comedy sits a quiet sadness, the kind that comes with chasing dreams that don't always want to catch you back. If you loved Girls, Fleabag or High Maintenance, this feels like the next evolution. Brutally honest, beautifully awkward and deeply human. I Love LA isn't just a comedy about ambition, it's a love letter to the messiness of trying to make it in a city that makes you question if you ever really can. Next on the list is Crutch, a classic family sitcom from the world of The Neighborhood with Tracy Morgan's chaos energy right at the center. Morgan plays Francois Crutchfield, who everyone calls Crutch. He's a Harlem widower finally ready to enjoy the quiet of an empty nest until both of his adult kids move back home. His son Jake arrives with opinions and half-baked plans, his daughter Jamila brings free-spirited confidence and a knack for testing house rules, add in Antoinette, his no-nonsense sister-in-law, plus neighborhood fixtures like Flacco and a couple of scene-stealing grandkids, and suddenly that quiet apartment feels like a full-blown community center. At its heart, Crutch is about the push and pull between generations, a father learning to let go and kids learning that maybe Dad was right about more than they thought. The comedy comes from personality, not punchlines, sharp banter, neighborhood gossip, and everyday struggles that feel instantly familiar. Tonally, it feels like classic sitcom comfort but with a sharper edge. Loud, heartfelt, and very New York. It's funny, yes, but it's also about pride, resilience, and what it means to hold your family together when everyone's growing in different directions. If you loved shows like The Neighborhood, Blackish, or Everybody Hates Chris, this one should be on your watch list. Crutch isn't trying to reinvent sitcoms, it's bringing them back to what made them work in the first place. Heart, humor, and a family you actually want to spend time with. Ryan Murphy is back, and this time he's turning divorce court into bloodsport. O's Fair takes the high-gloss chaos of The People vs. O.J. Simpson and the couture drama of Feud and drops it straight into the world of LA's most ruthless divorce attorneys. At the center of it all is Kim Kardashian as Allura Grant, a lawyer whose designer heels hide daggers. Allura leads a powerhouse all-female firm that handles the messiest breakups money can buy, from million-dollar settlements to reputation warfare. On the opposite side of the courtroom is Sarah Paulson as Carrington Lane, her former mentor turned fiercest rival. Their rivalry is sharp, strategic, and dripping with subtext. Equal parts legal chess match and personal vendetta. They're joined by an impressive supporting cast: Naomi Watts as the firm's founding partner Liberty Ronson, Niecy Nash as Emerald Green, the firm's fixer and moral compass, and Glenn Close as Dina Standish, the queen maker who built this empire and knows exactly how to burn it down. Tonally, O's Fair is pure courtroom spectacle, glossy, fast-paced, and unapologetically addictive. It's less about the law and more about the psychology of power, image, influence, and the price of control. Every scene crackles with tension, a perfectly manicured battlefield where wit is as lethal as evidence. If you love shows like The Good Wife, Suits, or Big Little Lies, this is your next obsession. It's the kind of show that makes you root for everyone and trust no one. And in true Ryan Murphy fashion, the most dangerous weapon in the room isn't a legal brief, it's a smile. Every parent's worst nightmare begins with something ordinary: a playdate, a familiar house, a knock on the door. That's the chilling setup for All Her Fault, Peacock's new psychological thriller based on Andrea Mara's best-selling novel. The story follows Marissa Irvine, played by Sarah Snook, a mother whose day unravels when she arrives to pick up her son from a friend's home, only to find strangers living there and no trace of her child. What begins as a frantic search quickly spirals into something deeper: secrets between parents, suburban facades cracking, and a mystery that stretches far beyond one missing boy. Dakota Fanning co-stars as a neighbor with her own connection to the case, while Jake Lacey, Michael Pena, Sophia Lillis, and Abby Elliott round out the ensemble, giving the show a lived-in authenticity that makes the unraveling all the more unsettling. Tonally, All Her Fault is similar to The Undoing, suburban perfection masking quiet panic, every conversation tinged with the fear that someone knows more than they're saying. Peacock's marketing leans into that voyeuristic tension, the idea that danger doesn't always come from outside your home but from the people you thought you could trust. If you love mysteries that start simple but twist tighter with every episode, All Her Fault should be at the top of your list. Presidential history has never been told quite like this. Death by lightning transforms one of America's strangest and most tragic stories, the assassination of President James A. Garfield, into a gripping political thriller that's equal parts history lesson and psychological drama. Based on Candice Millard's acclaimed non-fiction book Destiny of the Republic, the series follows Garfield's improbable rise from humble scholar to reluctant president, and the deranged obsession of Charles Guiteau, the man who would ultimately take his life. Michael Shannon stars as Garfield, bringing the kind of haunted intensity that made him perfect for the role, while Matthew McFadden plays Guiteau, a delusional drifter convinced that destiny itself owes him a reward. They're joined by Nick Offerman as Chester Arthur, Garfield's uneasy vice president, and Betty Gilpin, Bradley Whitford, and Shea Wingham in supporting roles that round out a Washington full of backroom deals, ambition, and betrayal. Tonally, Death by Lightning blends the grandeur of The Crown with the darkness of Mindhunter. Period detail meets psychological tension. The production design recreates late 19th century Washington in claustrophobic detail, flickering gas lamps, muddy streets, and a political class that looks both familiar and frighteningly modern. But what makes the series truly compelling is how it reframes Garfield's murder not as a random act, but as the inevitable collision of idealism, ambition, and madness, a story about the fragility of leadership and the chaos that fills its absence. If you love The Terror, The Nick, or House of Cards, Death by Lightning is that rare kind of historical drama that feels uncomfortably relevant, prestige television with purpose, and one of Netflix's most ambitious plays of the year. If Better Call Saul proved that Vince Gilligan could turn moral decay into art, his new Apple TV Plus series Pluribus asks something even stranger. What if happiness itself became the enemy? The series follows Rhea Seehorn as Marilyn Pierce, a woman described by Gilligan as the most miserable person on earth. She's a small-town science teacher whose quiet and happy life gets upended when she discovers that something or someone is trying to impose happiness on humanity. The more the world begins to smile, the more Marilyn starts to unravel. At first it sounds like quirky sci-fi, but as the story unfolds, it becomes a philosophical mystery, part satire, part psychological thriller about free will, identity, and whether people can really choose their emotions. Seehorn anchors the show with the same sharp mix of vulnerability and dry wit that made her unforgettable as Kim Wexler, while Carolina Vidra and Carlos Manuel Vesga add complexity as figures who may be helping or manipulating her. The series is shot in Albuquerque, though visually this world feels brighter, cleaner, almost unsettlingly perfect. Apple's press materials describe Pluribus as genre-defying optimism turned sinister, and that really captures the tone. A mirror world where utopia is just another form of control. The showrunners have said they wanted to explore a world where good intentions become horror, and that's exactly what it delivers. Equal parts dark comedy and speculative drama. If you're drawn to character-driven sci-fi like Severance, The Leftovers, or Palm Springs, Pluribus feels like the next evolution. Strange, thought-provoking, and a little too relatable for comfort. It's the kind of show that will leave you wondering if you'd recognize true happiness, even if it wasn't yours. Grief has a way of twisting what we see, and sometimes it turns curiosity into something darker. The Beast in Me follows Aggie Wiggs, played by Claire Danes, reeling from the death of her young son. In an effort to rebuild her life, she moves to a quiet coastal town only to find herself drawn to her enigmatic new neighbor, Niall Jarvis, played by Matthew Rhys, a man once suspected in his wife's disappearance. What begins as a fascination soon spirals into obsession. Aggie decides to write about Niall, telling herself it's for her next book, but her fixation blurs every line between research, fear, and attraction. It's a psychological dance between two damaged people who might understand each other a little too well. Brittany Snow appears as Niall's missing wife Nina, whose presence haunts both leads in unexpected ways, while Natalie Morales plays Shelley, Aggie's ex-wife, the one person still trying to save her from herself. Created by the team behind Homeland, The Beast in Me blends slow-burn suspense with psychological precision. It's about the quiet horror of grief, how love, loss, and loneliness can blur into something unrecognizable. Visually, it's haunting and intimate, grey skies, cold light, and the kind of quiet that makes you lean in. The tension isn't in what's said, but in what's left hanging between them. If you loved The Affair, this is that same emotional intensity, but colder, sharper, and more dangerous. The Beast in Me isn't just a thriller, it's a study of how far someone will go to feel alive again. Next on the list is Netflix's Last Samurai Standing, which takes the sweeping grandeur of a period epic and fuses it with the tension of a survival thriller. A brutal, beautiful look at honor, betrayal, and what happens when tradition meets chaos. Set in the 19th century during Japan's turbulent Meiji era, the series follows a group of 292 samurai participating in a deadly tournament lured by a 100 billion yen prize, where the code of Bushido is weaponized against them. At its center is Junichi Okada, who plays Shujiro Saga, who joins the battle royale to save his sick family. What makes Last Samurai Standing stand out isn't just its premise, it's how it blends spectacle with soul. The story explores the decline of the samurai class and the rise of modern Japan, using the tournament as a metaphor for survival in a changing world. Each episode follows a smaller cast of fighters, some idealists, some mercenaries, whose alliances shift as their principles are tested. The fight choreography is intense but meaningful, less about style, more about desperation. Tonally, it's Battle Royale meets 13 Assassins, brutal, poetic, and unflinchingly human. It's a show about warriors facing extinction, not just from each other, but from history itself. If you love historical dramas with grit and grandeur, and you've been waiting for something that pairs the emotional weight of Shogun with the tension of Squid Game, Last Samurai Standing is shaping up to be one of November's most ambitious and addictive series. Next on the list is Malice, which turns a dream holiday into a slow-motion nightmare you won't be able to look away from. Set between London and the Greek islands, this 6-part psychological thriller follows Jamie Tanner, played by David Duchovny, a self-made businessman enjoying the perfect family getaway, luxury villa, ocean views, and the illusion of control. Enter Adam Healy, played by Jack Whitehall, a disarmingly charming tutor hired to help with the kids. At first, he's helpful, attentive, even indispensable, until it becomes clear that Adam knows far more about this family than he should. What starts as a social thriller about class and power morphs into a revenge story layered with obsession and deceit. Caris Van Houten delivers icy perfection as Jamie's wife, a woman who sees the cracks long before he does, while Kristen Adams and Raza Jaffrey bring texture as friends circling the edges of privilege and guilt. Created by James Wood, Malice blends luxury with menace. It's shot like a postcard, blinding sun, turquoise water, but beneath the beauty runs a steady pulse of dread. There are no jump scares here, just the slow realization that you've invited danger in and offered it a drink. Tonally, think The White Lotus meets Ripley, elegant, unsettling, and designed to make you question everyone's motives. If you love your thrillers sharp, seductive, and psychologically charged, Malice is the one to circle on your November watch list, a perfect reminder that not every paradise is meant to be shared. Next on the list is Landman, Taylor Sheridan's modern oil-filled drama which is back for a second season, and expectations are sky high. Season 1 introduced us to Tommy Norris, played by Billy Bob Thornton, a landman navigating the volatile world of West Texas oil, a place where fortunes rise and collapse with the turn of a drill bit. Season 2 is expected to expand that world, digging deeper into the human and environmental costs of the energy boom. A new power players enter the game, and Old Alliance's fracture. Demi Moore, who joined the cast late last season, is set for a much larger role as Cammy Miller, a wealthy oil family matriarch whose charm masks ruthless pragmatism. Ali Larter, Michelle Randolph, and James Parks are all expected to return, while several new faces, including Sam Elliott, join the ensemble, hinting at generational clashes and a deeper exploration of the industry's moral fault lines. Created by Christian Wallace and Taylor Sheridan and inspired by the Boomtown podcast from Texas Monthly, Landman blends character-driven storytelling with real-life authenticity. Sheridan's trademark grit is there, the tension, the stoic anti-heroes, the moral gray zones, but this show adds an industrial pulse, exploring what happens when survival, profit, and conscience collide in one of the most dangerous jobs in America. Early comments from the cast suggest the new season will tackle larger political stakes, expanding beyond the oil fields into corporate boardrooms and Washington back channels. Expect wider scope, higher stakes, and the same dusty visual poetry that makes every Sheridan serial feel mythic. If you love the first season's mix of realism and moral tension, or if you're drawn to stories that turn industry into battleground, Landman Season 2 looks like a powerhouse return, a modern American saga about ambition, loyalty, and the cost of digging too deep. After the success of The Legend of Vox Machina, Prime Video is doubling down on the Critical Role universe, and this time the stakes are even higher. The Mighty Nein adapts the second campaign from the hit Dungeons & Dragons actual play series, turning an already beloved story into a full-scale animated fantasy epic. At its heart is a band of unlikely heroes, thieves, fugitives, and misfits bound not by destiny but by accident. Among the cast of characters are Bo, the skeptical monk with a chip on her shoulder, Fjord, the brooding half-orc haunted by mysterious powers, Caleb, a brilliant mage with a past he's desperate to escape, and Jester, the chaotic trickster whose humor hides heartbreak. The original Critical Role cast returns to voice their characters, giving the show the same authenticity and emotional heartbeat that made the campaign a phenomenon. Where Vox Machina leaned into irreverent humor and over-the-top action, the Mighty Nein aims for something moodier. Part heist, part redemption arc, part moral fable. It explores what it means to be chosen even when you don't believe you deserve it. Visually, expect sweeping fantasy landscapes, intricate magic sequences, and fluid animation, but with more emotional weight behind the spectacle. Early teasers hint at a tone closer to Arcane or Castlevania, witty and wild, yes, but also deeply sincere. If you love fantasy that balances heart, humor, and high stakes, or if you're curious what all the Critical Role buzz is about, The Mighty Nein is the perfect entry point, a show about broken people trying to do something good even when they keep getting in their own way. On November 20th, the world's most unlikely spy is heading back undercover, and this time the mission is personal. Season 2 of A Man on the Inside picks up with Charles, played by Ted Danson, a widowed retiree who stumbled into espionage in the first season and somehow became good at it. Now, Charles finds himself infiltrating a small liberal arts college where a blackmailer is targeting staff and donors, and the deeper he digs, the clearer it becomes that the corruption runs closer to home than he thought. Returning alongside Danson are Mary Elizabeth Ellis as his daughter Emily, Stephanie Beatrice as Dee Dee, and Stephen McKinney Henderson as Calbert, the unlikely crew that keeps Charles grounded when the stakes get messy. New additions include Mary Steenburgen as Mona, a warm-hearted music teacher who might finally convince Charles to live again, and Max Greenfield as Berenger, the charming but secretive college president whose smile hides more than one scandal. Created by Michael Schur from from The Good Place and inspired by the Oscar-nominated documentary The Mole Agent, the series continues its gentle mix of comedy, heart, and mystery. Instead of car chases and gunfights, a man on the inside finds suspense in the small things, a conversation, a clue, a moment of empathy that changes everything. Tonally, it's light on its feet but rich in feeling, a show about aging, connection, and what it means to matter when the world keeps moving on. The new season promises a slightly bigger story, more emotional depth, and the same comforting charm that made the first season such a quiet hit. If you love Only Murders in the Building, Poker Face, or The Good Place, A Man on the Inside is one to watch this November, a spy story that swaps gadgets for humanity and proves that curiosity really can save the day. After nearly a decade of Demogorgons, disappearances, and Dungeons and Dragons, Stranger Things is coming to an end, and Netflix is pulling out all the stops for its final season. Season 5 picks up in the aftermath of last season's explosive finale, with Hawkins no longer just haunted by the Upside Down, it's being consumed by it. The series that began as a small-town mystery about a missing kid has become a full-blown apocalyptic saga about loss, friendship, and the cost of growing up. All the core cast members return for the final chapter: Millie Bobby Brown as Eleven, Finn Wolfhard, Caleb McLaughlin, Sadie Singh, Gaten Matarazzo, Natalie Dyer, David Harbour as Hopper, and Winona Ryder as Joyce. Expect long-awaited reunions, new dangers, and the show's trademark mix of heartfelt nostalgia and supernatural dread. The Duffer Brothers have teased that the final season brings the story full circle, connecting directly back to the early mysteries of Season 1 while expanding the mythology of the Upside Down in ways fans have been waiting for since 2016. Production on Season 5 was the most ambitious yet, with feature-length episodes, massive set pieces, and what Netflix is calling the biggest emotional and visual conclusion in the platform's history. Split into 3 drops, Volume 1 on November 26th, Volume 2 on December 25th, and the finale event on December 31st, is designed to dominate the holiday season. Tonally, this is Stranger Things at its most cinematic, blending blockbuster spectacle with genuine character payoff. Duffer Brothers described the final arc as a mix between The Goonies and Saving Private Ryan, equal parts heart and heartbreak. For fans, this isn't just the end of a show, it's the end of an era. A generation grew up with Stranger Things, and its finale promises to deliver both closure and chaos in equal measure. If you've ever been invested in this world, in the kids, the monsters, or that perfect mix of 80s wonder and terror, November 26th is the day to turn off the lights, hit play, and say goodbye to Hawkins one last time. And that's November, packed with big swings, bold sequels, and a fresh new surprises that could easily steal the spotlight before the year's out. From tense psychological thrillers to warm comedies and prestige returns, it's one of those months where there's something for every kind of TV mood. Whether you're chasing drama, laughs, or just an excuse to ignore your weekend plans. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, share it with a fellow TV addict, and subscribe so you don't miss the next list. It really helps the channel to grow and keeps the recommendations coming every single week. See you next time, and remember, sleep is optional when there's one more episode.